All right. So next up, we have a short symposium here called Seeing Clearly Now, Tips and Tricks for Specimen Imaging from Legacy Systems to the Latest Gear. And unfortunately, we do have a cancellation in this symposium. Our last speaker had to withdraw. So we just have 3 talks for this, and we'll keep moving so we can still get out to lunch. So up first is actually me. So I'm Andrew Johnston at Purdue University. And I want to talk about building your own fully functional focus stacking system. So we've seen some great talks about some of these larger systems, but I think we all know the value and the use of general focus stacking in our collections. It's how we can digitize our specimens to be used for exhibits and outreach, for sharing our specimens with researchers and people around the world. So we're all familiar with their uses, but why might you want to build your own? And I think to start, we should say that the commercially available systems are fantastic. They're feature rich, and they come with documentation and support. And it's hard to put a value on that. And so if you are at an institution with a lot of users and you're able to afford these systems, I think they're great. But why might you want to build your own? Well, maybe you have budget constraints and it's hard to afford these, or you want to parallelize your workflows and have more systems set up. Maybe you already have a partial graveyard of old systems. I've seen a lot of these that are no longer in working order. So maybe you can kind of refurbish those and get them up and running again. And also maybe like me, you don't value your own time and you kind of like to experiment with things. And so these could be good for you. And so everything I'm going to mention today, you don't have to quick scan this, but I'll show this QR code at the end. All of this is in a blog post online with links to all the items so you could purchase these or look into them, and a bit more discussion is given there. So the hope is that from this, that those of us who've been working with imaging systems, you probably know enough to build your own, even if you don't realize that already. And so quickly, I'll just kind of go through these 5 kind of groups of main elements within an imaging system and some recommendations of what I've been using to build my own setups. So you need some sort of camera and lens combo to take your images. You need your rail system to move your camera up and down and mount it on a stand. You need your lighting and diffusion to be able to take those nice images of your specimens. Then there's a few other kind of peripherals and optional components, and that kind of rounds out the physical gear that you need, along with the computer and the software to run it. And so myself and our next presenter, Chris Wirth, we've been testing just about every commercially available lens out there, and we have a few blog posts on these, both in the lab and in the field. And there's a lot of options. And I think the first thing I want to say is that old lenses are still fantastic. So if you have a system with a camera or a lens, that's probably still good, even if the rest of the system is not working. And so they're perfectly fine to keep reused. But you do need high quality materials there. And on the current market, if you're buying brand new, off the shelf, probably this is the most expensive component that you'd have to buy, about $1,500. And our traditional systems go from 1 to 5x magnification. That gets the habitus for most insects. So with a pair of lenses today for about $750 brand new, you can get those photos. So typically I use these Laowa lenses. Again, all of these links are online with recommendations and discussion. And for me, these take photos that are comparable to what I've been able to take on any other system, between 1x magnification to 5x. So they work well for me, at least. And so you have this camera and the lens set up, and you have to mount this to something. And so there's a number of different options. And again, you probably already have, maybe you have some copy stands sitting around already you could repurpose. If you already have some of these older systems that aren't working to their full potential anymore, you might already have this Cognisys Stack Shot sitting around. These are workhorses and great. They're about $700 new. And this is a DIY stand I made with a little L bracket for a closet shelf mounted to some plywood. So that's pretty inexpensive. But now I've been moving to buying all of this off the shelf just from using a company called WeMacro that makes a stand and a rail that's quite affordable, even new, somewhere around $500 to get this stand to mount your camera and lenses to. So now we have a camera, we have it on a rail that can move up and down and take our series of shots in our system. And we need to add to that some sort of lighting. And for this, we have a number of options, but basically there's two categories. You can either use kind of the classic flash, the strobe lighting, and this is your brightest. This is why a lot of our systems come with this in the first place. And if you already have them, again, that's great. You can probably use them. One downside is that these probably require batteries, so you need rechargeables and some sort of charging station to use it. We've seen some examples of using LED light panels, which are fantastic. They give you consistent light so you can set up your shot and know exactly what you're going to get when you take that photo. They can be USB powered, which is good, but they're not as bright as our classic standalone flashes. So when you start getting up into that 4 and 5x magnification and higher, they might start to break down, but they cost about the same these days, and there are many commercially available options that you can use. If you pair your flashes, then you need some way to diffuse that light. We all know that diffused lighting is critical. If you have direct light, it's going to be a pretty garbage image off of your insect. And so for this, I have decided to not purchase things. I've tried a lot of diffusers online, and there are a lot of good options out there, but something simple like an old coffee cup that you cut the bottom off or a piece of tracing paper is great. So you don't have to break the bank on any of that. So now we have most of the items that we need, and that makes a really portable system, similar to some of the old systems that were sold and modern ones that you can travel to museums and take type photos or whatever your project might entail. That's a standard Schmidt box for kind of size comparison to sit there. So again, this is with kind of my Wii macro setup, and I'm so far in, again, assuming you're buying all new components, only about $2,300 in there, which might be a bit for a personal setup, but is not very bad for thinking about a collection or an institutional thing. Again, another version of one I've built with these flashes and the old Cognitive Stack Shot, still under $3,000 all in to get a system like this. There's still a few other odds and ends you have to have. These are a little bit cleaned up systems. This is what my workspace usually looks like, which is a bit more distracted. You have to have a few more cables to get your camera to connect to your computer and so forth. And some arms to mount all these together. Again, we have this post with all of these items. But the other thing I wanted to mention here is that this is kind of your standard system that goes up to 5x imaging. But there's also a series of lenses I've been testing out for about a year and a half now, made by Laowa, called the Aragon system. And this provides a 10x, 20x, 35x, and 50x magnification that clips right onto the camera and the stand that you already have. This is actually that lens on my desk there with the camera. And this increases your magnification up to 10x. So this is a fairly small beetle that you can get a high resolution habitus of, or you can get kind of character details. These are the antennal sensoria on a darkling beetle that you can get. And if you move up to 20x, you can get images that I think are comparable to what you'd have with a microscope system. This is a slide mounted Thrips, and this is the entire frame. This isn't cropped in at all. And all I did was place the slide on a little watch glass and a piece of tracing paper. So nothing super fancy. So I think that these systems are workable. They're relatively affordable. And so then the last thing that you need is some sort of computer to run this system and the software to run it. I think most of us are familiar with many of these options. And I will say that you don't need to invest in a super high-powered computer. I've always used a laptop that is the base spec model. I use Macs, but any Mac or PC will pretty much do. And for software, you're probably in the $200 range, either for Serene Stacker, Helicon Focus are both great. And they have lifetime licenses from $100 to $300. And then photo editing, hopefully you have an Adobe subscription. And if not, there are other free options that get almost there. But so I guess really just what I wanted to put out here is that we've tested all of these different components, and it's possible. And if you're thinking that you would like to have another imaging system, but you're not sure if you can afford one, $2,500 to $3,000 all in gets you up to 5x magnification. $4,500 gets you up to about 35x magnification. I've had trouble at 50 and higher getting good shots of dried insects, but you might be able to figure that out yourself. And all of this is customizable. And there's a lot of options to reduce your costs here if you're interested in rebuilding your own systems. So in summary, just want to say that I think focus stacking can be very affordable now. If you're interested in getting into this, if you have a smaller collection or want to increase the number of stations available to your collections workers. And I would encourage people to think about rebuilding their systems that you already have sitting around and see what you can scavenge, and maybe you can get them back into use. But the one caveat is that there's not support, so you're going to have to spend a lot of time troubleshooting yourself if you get stuck. And so again, I'll just put this QR code up, and I just kind of wanted to, we wanted to let people know of all these tests that we've done, and maybe all the time and money we've spent in trying everything on the market can benefit you if you're trying to make your own system. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions. Mm-hmm. Mike. Yeah. Yeah, and so the comment there was that using a microscope objective lens to get the higher magnification, and that's effectively what these Aragon lenses are. Just the nice thing is that you can buy it off the shelf. It's a little bit more expensive, but if you have objective lenses laying around, or you have ones that you prefer the sharpness of, those are definitely some options. Yeah. Is that it? Okay. Well, next up in our symposium, we have Chris Wirth, who is giving a talk on stacking savings, assembling a portable focus stacking system on a budget.
Thank you, Andrew. Okay, so maybe doubling down a bit on what Andrew just shared. I got into thinking, okay, what's the extreme? How cheap can we go? What options do we have? And not just for the thrill of it, but just to see if we could find more affordable options for small institutions, individuals. So just briefly, I think we're familiar with the need for focus stacking to overcome this inherent loss of depth of field when you're focusing on small subjects. And just as a historical aside, a fun antecedent to this focus stacking was actually projecting back in using film photography, projecting a thin, razor thin layer of light and passing the specimen through that instead of capturing multiple images, not feasible with film, but capturing a long exposure as that specimen passed through the plane of light. However, this had the downside that you could not diffuse the light, and so always had harsh lighting on your subject. But a very interesting technique. However, with the advent of digital photography and the negligible cost per image and negligible cost of computing, assembling these photos, focus stacking is won out. So hit on this again, why DIY? My take on this is that there has not yet been a better time. This is the best time so far to find high quality, high resolution used cameras, lenses. This is because many of the major camera manufacturers have switched from the old digital single lens reflex cameras to mirrorless. So there is there are many often very good condition used cameras available through a number of retailers online, or even if it still exists, your local camera store, if you're lucky enough to live near one. And when all else fails, everyone's favorite place to spend too much time and money, eBay. And again, another reason to DIY, you may have some of these systems. You may find this a pleasant distraction from any and everything. But I really want to hit on this, that this approach does have a higher learning curve, and it has no support either for the whole system or if a component breaks versus the off-the-shelf options. So just to get right into it, these days we can find really good DSLRs, and to us, this digital single lens reflex, that mirror, if you're walking around taking pictures, you'll have that mirror. As you press the shutter, the mirror comes up, exposes the sensor, the shutter and the sensor. However, we can often turn these off and use electronic shutter because our subjects aren't moving. So we get the benefit of locking up the mirror, basically just putting that to the side, and it's not a concern for the types of photography we're doing with macro subjects. Now, as you're scouring out, looking for used cameras, just a word of caution is looking for these hot or stuck pixels. Basically, in your stacks, they can show up as red or blue or highlighted lines through your frames. And of course, with any mechanical device, camera shutters do have, and mirror assemblies do have a rated amount of life, so it's in the hundreds of thousands of shots, but lower shutter counts are preferable. Now, as an alternative to the macro lenses that Andrew shared, thinking back to the film days, we had a task that involved high resolution, in this case, projecting. So in making enlargements of photographic negatives, we used photographic enlargers in which we pass light through a negative and then through an enlarging lens onto photosensitive paper. Now, these are ideal lenses to reuse because virtually no one is using them for their intended purpose anymore, and they are available very cheaply online or in person. Or if you're at an institution that is decommissioning a darkroom or has a university property surplus, can be great places to find these. But these are ideal lenses because they were, especially the later iterations like this Nikon enlarger lens, they were designed in the modern era with computer-aided design, and they produce a flat field, a high-resolution image. Think about the size of a 35 mm frame. That is in the perfect size range for our subjects. And a word of caution when shopping for these lenses: don't purchase, and this applies to any photographic lens, used lens, beware of fungus or haze in these lenses. Sometimes when stored and moisture can condense inside these lenses, it can cause those the fungus to grow inside the lens. Now, it's not just enough to have this lens, but by pairing this with a bellows, the classical means of taking macro shots in the film days, these are also very affordable. And this model here, this is a higher end Nikon bellows that can be found for about $100. So between the two, you come away with a macro option that is 95 or greater percent of the performance as a new macro lens, especially at the stop down apertures that we may be using for macro photos, at a fraction less than half of the cost of new. Now, you will need some adapters, and with these lenses, because these lenses were used to project an image onto photosensitive paper, we actually will mount this lens in the reverse configuration so that the light path is following its designed, its intended highest resolution light path. So we mount this lens, if you see here, in the reverse configuration, but altogether very affordable. And the probably single most expensive element of this system is a motorized focusing rail. The Wii Macro rail is a great option. I have seen, rarely, but and I think this attests to the quality of this, rarely see the stack shots available on the used market. Now, for this budget system, instead of going with an existing stand, I've chosen to mount this this focusing rail on a bracket, an angled bracket, which I can then, just with a couple screws, attach to it and mount it at a right angle. So in this, the system is disassembled here, but that rail would mount perpendicularly to this base. And with a couple of lens plates, these are quick release plates, so they are machined aluminum, very sturdy. And by coupling three of them together, plus the right angle post on the rail, this forms a solid base, and I further cushion it with a couple strips of foam placed under the legs. Now, the real benefit beyond the cost is that this is a highly portable system and can fit into, nearly fit into a normal backpack, although you probably want a little more padding than that. And to hold the specimens, this is the one part that might be a little custom, is I have taken a microscope stage and drilled a hole in it to hold the specimen and placed it on this clamp so it actually slides up and down that central rail. And for light sources, I've also chosen to go with LEDs because it allows an instantaneous feedback, quick positioning of subject to minimize that handling time and any back and forth repetition when trying to preview the specimen. So, and I use constant power with these lights. This is a very budget-friendly option. Sometimes it can be hard to find this particular model of light. But then I have the lights mounted on these four arms, which with an adapter screw into the basically the 4 feet on the base. So right now we're looking at the system from above. Now, just to further emphasize, even with this budget system, the magic in it is diffusion. It's diffusion, diffusion, and diffusion. So I can't overstate the importance of this. I use a truncated cone for my dorsal and ventral shots, and we'll use a cylinder for lateral images where lateral photographs of specimens where I require a little more lens maneuvering or handling room. And the material these diffusers we've tried making diffusers out of are tracing paper or this slightly thicker faux vellum, or even opaque drafting mylar can produce a very durable source of diffusion. And then, of course, we need a software option to stack these images and factoring in a backpack. And again, I recommend looking at your local camera store. Online camera outlets often have really inexpensive camera backpacks that have a little more padding, but are the same size as our standard backpacks. Now, this is the whole system, and just for reference, that laptop is the footprint of a Schmidt box. So it is highly compact, and there's the system disassembled. Still very, very convenient. Nothing here is excessively long or bulky to fit into a suitcase or a bag when traveling. I know checking a camera system can be stressful, so this is a good option to carry with you. So here's a result. So at the minimum magnification with this reversed lens, it's about 1.6 times magnification. The scale bar there is 5 millimeters. So this is going to encompass most, capture a good habitus image of most insects or many insects. And I will say, while you're looking at used camera lenses, there are used macro lenses that will not go often above half-life size. But if you want to photograph large insects, those can be even more affordable options and dispense with rather than choosing the bellows and enlarger lens. So that is another option that's out there. Here's just another iteration of diffusion is critical. So you see here a undiffused and diffused comparison. Just note how much of that surface sculpturing is not visible. And this says nothing of iridescent or reflective specimens. Now, this is the system in its highest magnification configuration. So this is with the photographic bellows fully extended. And here's an example. So this is about 4.5 times magnification, perfect for your smaller habitus shots of your smaller tenebrionids. And there is this image fully blown up, so perfectly usable for any of our normal applications. And this system swapping in an old digital camera, if you're recycling one from an existing, a legacy system, still produces fine results. So this image would be more than usable again. And again, just a beautiful tenebrionid. So I will post a price list for this, but in total, everything shown comes to $1,522, give or take. So this can be highly affordable. And it is there is great information out there online, especially amongst the hobbyist photography community. And you can spend hours and hours, as Andrew mentioned, on YouTube. And with that, questions? Ooh, the time to assemble. I would say for me, with a little bit of practice, it's under 10 minutes. It's probably closer to 5. The key thing is I find having a small photographic bubble level to be very useful when attaching these components together. Thankfully, because of the way if we go back here, the way this macro rail attaches to that post, that uses 2 screws. So it puts it nearly at the perfect perpendicular element. So it takes some of the guesswork out that attaching a camera would, but still attaching the camera to the rail is a moment where you might want to spend some time just making sure it's perpendicular. It's both parallel and perpendicular to your work surfaces, to the surface of the surface of movement and your work surface.
Small beetles that you showed us there. What's your working distance?
Whoops. I thought I included that. The working distance is, let's see, it's between 63 and 40. Oh, goodness. Oh, yes, there it is. 42 millimeters. Yes, in all of these, you can't see it because the LEDs are far too bright, but there is a diffuser underneath, and it is the same diffuser. So with this system, I have a single diffuser pictured there that is, it is large enough to accommodate most of your North American, Northeastern tenebrionids. So that's my baseline for that. So the Godox continuous lights are the Godox LED 64. And again, I'll post this with a price list and some links on the line.
Okay. And up next, moving again, maybe from recycling some old systems into newer gear and workflow, we have Tatiana Sepulveda talking about scaling up the insect collection digitization and drawer dissect AI workflow.
Hello, everyone. Just have my time here. My name is Tatiana Sepulveda. I am the collection manager of the insects collection at the Field Museum. And I am very grateful for Christine's previous videos of the Giga Macro, because now this presentation will make a lot of sense to everyone. I will show you in these 10 minutes how we have been using the Giga Macro, trying to extract all its power, not just for research, but also for the digitization of our collections. Oh, sorry, I'll present also Bruno, the curator of insects, and Elizabeth, that is here, a postdoc at the Field Museum, that is the master puppeteer of our Giga Macro. So we have been talking lately about how to digitize our collection. We have a pretty good inventory of our almost 15 million specimens, but we still have a lot of data locked, like the situation of most of the collections that you work on. Like violins, we have this treasure that its real value and its real power remains locked, because we don't have the capacity or yet the technology to take that data out to the world. So we're all working very hard at the Field Museum too about that. So we have been asking ourselves how to release all this power to the world. We are like the insects holds half of the objects of the Field Museum. So our challenge is big. And in insects, of course, like we recently had a picture digitization project for botany, and they're lucky because they have to take one photo and they have specimen and label in the same place. We still have every label is another level of challenge for insects. And also our collection is very rich in beetles. So I would say almost half of our specimens in the pin collection are beetles. So Bruno is also, and Elizabeth, working with this group. I hope I made a video. It's pretty slow. My 10 minutes will finish with that. This is our pin collection, and but in total, with the wet slides and every other specimen, we have probably more than 15 million. We started using the Giga Macro for research, for Elizabeth and Bruno's research on color evolution in beetles. So they have this pipeline that allowed them to take whole drawer images using the system. You can all check Elizabeth's pipeline in the GitHub in this QR code. What they're basically doing, they started using the Giga Macro to have whole drawer images. Then they will use another third-party programs to have specimens, individual images, and then we associate that with the QR codes that we use at our database. So we will have a huge amount of images of every specimen, in this case of the tiger beetles, to get into our database and GitHub and out to the world for research. So this is like a example of how they use it. They use RoboFlow to get the individual images of specimens. Then they have other data, other metadata out of the images that they use in the research for shapes, colors. They have some also research in morphometrics and shapes. So these are the two main examples. They can associate the data, they can extract from the images with climatic data and have some relations between the changes, the variations in the different populations with the conditions in different places in North America. They are also developing this tool to help identify tiger beetles. So far, they're starting working with other groups, but we hope we can use that because we know training a taxonomy takes a lot of time and takes a lot of resources. So this will help. It's not perfect. As you see, still there are some failure areas, but when the program gets like the right traits to identify the specimen, it's pretty accurate. So we see a lot of potential in that development. And so with all these things, these very cool things that we're doing with the Giga Macro, we thought like, oh, we need to take this a little further. We can get all these images with a QR code to put in our database. But as Christine said too, we still have the problem of the labels. So how we can work to get the labels transcribed. Oh, let me just go back here. I'm just showing here the massiveness of our collection compared with what we have managed to digitize and to put like in global repositories of biodiversity. So we are really invested in getting this done, transcribe all our data. So yes, I got the job in May, so I made a lot of promises. So I need to get this done. Okay, we are very good in this part. We have learned a lot in this part of the research. So we believe at least to get individual images of the specimens and to have full images of a whole drawer very fast, we're good in that field. So we need to, if we decide then to get the images of our whole type specimens, we can do that in about 3 months. So that is a good improvement. But we still have the bottleneck of the labels. It still takes a lot of time. It requires individual handling of the specimen so we can see the labels. And this is a good example because, especially older collections, you can have a ton of labels in a pin. So you cannot see the labels if you don't manipulate it to make some space. And we also have, we use KeyEmu. That has been a little bit of an issue for us. We have to deal a lot, especially to audit our our data already in email. But let's tackle one problem at a time. So we are working with the Giga Macro work that they were doing on labels. We could have partial information from the labels. It is cool to have information from the labels when the specimens are not bigger than the labels. But in many cases, as you see with the other image with the butterflies, and that's only one example of many specimens very big that we cannot see the labels at all. So manipulating the specimens to get the labels out remains an issue. And so we started a test. We did the digitization of all our longhorn beetles primary types collection. The label handling then was the thing that would take more time. And then we created a script for the 3 different other steps we will use to transcribe the labels. It was a grid cutter. I'll show you later. Christine already showed how they do. It's just that we just take images of the labels. We separate them from the specimens. We do the parser of the labels. That one requires AI. And finally, we saw after having all those readings from AI, we saw we needed a final step that would be the taxonomy check. So this is basically the steps. We have been experimenting a lot with the Giga Macro. It's a great tool. We also have these rulers for taking individual images when we don't require like a lot of images. And this is kind of the workflow we created. So with one person, with 2 stations, 2 volunteers that will help us get the labels out, and another one to get the labels in, and in the middle, a stage to take the photos of the labels. And it's here in the grid. So it's a 11:8 grid. And then we managed in one 5-hour day with these 2 volunteers to process 1,000 labels. We decided to focus on the data we really needed. And then, so we have our catalog number, locality, specific locality, and some other things about it. These were like the columns we really wanted the AI to read for us. And then we had a separate column for all the other data that was not like super important for us at the moment. So we could later tackle that and see how we're gonna have that data also in our database. But we had priorities. So these were the fields. It worked very well for mostly typed labels. That works super well. We made some mistakes, as you see here. Then this, oh no, it doesn't work. We have this upside down label. We still had the precise location. We lost country and we lost date of collecting, but looks also pretty good. Still works for us. Handwritten labels is everybody's nightmare. So I think it did kind of okay with it, not so much with taxonomy. So at this point, we started finding out that taxonomy was going to be an issue for the reading of the labels, because in the handwritten of localities, the AI prompt was pretty successful, like in this Uruguay, Canelones region. But again, taxonomy pretty bad. So we created this last step for taxonomy check. We gave the program a database for taxonomy. Without AI, it didn't work very well. So we did it with AI, and we had a good match, and it also gave us like the likelihood of being the result like the program is giving us. So from the drawer Dissect to use all these tools and all this technology in our collection, we still have challenges. We need definitely try to think on ways of reducing the handling of because probably some of you when saw that grid as happened at the Film Museum were very scared. Like if someone sneezes here, these labels will all go over the place. So there are things to work on, but I think these meetings are great resources for that, because then we start seeing what others are doing and we improve our own workflows. We need also to try to improve the use of AI and be very conscious about it. That's why we divided our program in 3 steps, only one of them. And probably the taxonomy check, we're gonna have to use AI too, but on the first one, to get the grid divided, we only use Python. And as I said, the QEMU dark room, we still need to work on that too to get our collection out to the world, but we're moving forward to it. So this presentation was born from seeing what the amazing research that people is doing in our collection and try to bring that to the collection, because at the end, the collections are the ones that allowed all this research to happen. So it's good to try to work together to see how we can make the best of these technologies for collections too. We need to work together, and that's why I'm so happy to be here to see all the things that I'll definitely be looking at those YouTube videos. So this will wait a little bit. I'll be trying to get all those camera sets for collections, and thank you very much. Any questions?
Sorry, maybe this is a Bruno question, but that tiger beetle project, we saw the tiger beetles we photographed just dorsally covering up the labels. So were those in data sets where they were using the header label of the unit tray to say what the taxon was?
Yes, it's because, yeah. Okay. Because the tiger beetle images are just dorsal. So that's a good thing, because we are mapping the trace too. So within the pipeline of the research, they have QR codes and data for every tray. And then every specimen also has, but that is a posterior step. They're including, like, they get at the end, when they run the program, they have at the end a map of every specimen. And then they add a QR code to that, and they put it back in the position as the image that they have. That was one of the questions, because they are using only dorsal images, and maybe in collections, especially for the type materials, for example, we need a little more than that. But then the question for us was, do we need to have images of our whole collection? No. That's why we decided to move to the only labels photos, because that will help us speed up the process and get the data out for people to be able to do more research with our data. Yes, thank you.